Have you ever met a stranger who completely changed the course of your life? Have you ever wondered, could a small decision, a sudden act of kindness, change the fate of a child, or even your own? Today's story begins with a moment that seemed meaningless. A child caught red-handed, trying to steal a wallet in a movie theater during Thanksgiving. But instead of ending in punishment, it became the starting point of a journey of healing, connection, and rediscovering lost family values. In a society still full of barriers between the rich and the poor, between old wounds and new chances, can a frozen heart learn to open again? Can affection be strong enough to bring lost souls back together? Follow this story to the end, and if it were you, what would you do in that situation? Don't forget to leave a comment or share your thoughts below. That afternoon, as the late autumn sunlight stretched across the narrow streets of Boston, Olivia Grant stepped into the Paramount Theater with her usual air, firm, confident, without a trace of hesitation. At 42, Olivia was a well-known name in real estate and investment circles, famous for her discipline and a coldness as solid as marble. Every step she took was calculated. Every decision was tied to profit, strategy, and status. In her world, everything had its place. This afternoon, she wasn't here for leisure. She had come to meet a potential business partner in the VIP lounge of the theater. But the meeting never happened the way she expected. The moment she stopped at the ticket counter, she sensed an unusual movement behind her. A small hand, tentative and hesitant, slipped into her purse, light as a breath, but just enough to trigger her instincts. Olivia spun around. Her hand reacted with the speed and precision of someone seasoned in boardroom battles, swift, deliberate. She grabbed the wrist of the intruder in an instant. Not a professional pickpocket. Not an adult, just a boy, about 9, maybe 10 years old, skinny beneath an oversized jacket, with deep brown eyes looking up at her, not afraid, not begging, but holding something else, something old and silent, as if he was used to getting caught, as if he was used to not being believed. "What are you doing?" Olivia asked, her voice not loud, but sharp and cold like honed steel. The boy didn't struggle. He didn't cry. He just answered softly, "My mom is sick. I need money to buy medicine." A simple sentence, but the way he said it, there was no pleading, just the truth, or what he believed was the only truth that could get him through the day. Olivia loosened her grip slightly, her eyes never leaving that child's face. "Where's your dad?" The question came out like a reflex. And then, the boy said it lightly, as if he were telling someone else's story. "I tried to find him, didn't go how I hoped." A chill ran down Olivia's spine. She didn't know why, but those words, that voice, echoed from another life, a part of her past she had long locked away. Before she could say anything more, the boy suddenly slipped his hand free and ran, vanishing into the crowd of laughing moviegoers. As if he had never existed, Olivia stood still. One hand clenched the strap of her purse, the other touched the collar of her coat. For the first time in years, she felt out of control. And strangely, she couldn't shake it off. Couldn't return to business as usual. Couldn't let go of that image of a boy with eyes too old for his age. Couldn't let go of herself. That evening, Olivia returned to her luxury penthouse on the 27th floor of a high-rise in the city center. Glass walls reflected the shimmering lights from across the Charles River, but she didn't bother to draw the curtains. The room was dark, filled only with the low rumble of the coffee machine in the kitchen and the whistle of wind brushing against thick glass. She dropped into the leather chair by the window, her heels hitting the wooden floor with a soft thud. The entire day had vanished from her memory. All that remained was the image of that boy. The eyes, the voice, the answer, sharp as a blade, slicing into an old wound she thought had healed. "I tried to find him. Didn't go how I hoped." That sentence didn't just haunt her. It struck something inside her, a tension, a knot of memory never truly untied. She stood up and opened her laptop. By now, she should have been reviewing 3 contracts pending with Canadian investors. But today, the numbers wouldn't call her back. Olivia pulled up the security footage from the theater, part of a management system her firm had once invested in. With a few clicks, she accessed the recording. The boy appeared in the upper right corner of the frame, moving swiftly like someone who'd spent his life on the streets. He didn't look around, didn't hesitate. He had gone straight for her. And in that exact moment, Olivia remembered a very old day, a freezing winter when she was 17. It was the day her single mother stood outside the emergency room, empty-handed, panicked, begging for help, and no one stopped, alone, fending for herself, enduring, surviving. She turned off the screen and walked slowly toward the wooden cabinet beside the bookshelf. In a deep drawer, under old business cards and faded notepads, lay a photo frame face down. She picked it up and turned it over. A picture of a young woman holding a little girl outside a community health clinic. The woman was her mother, and the girl, with messy curls falling over her forehead, was Olivia. She stared at it for a long time. Some wounds never really heal. People just learn to cover them, with success, with packed schedules, with self-control. But sometimes, all it takes is one small pair of eyes to peel everything back. Her phone vibrated. A call from her assistant, Miss Olivia. Everything's set for the real estate auction tomorrow morning. Shall I send you the draft of your speech? Olivia stared at the screen for a long moment before replying, her voice quiet. Cancel tomorrow morning. I need a day to myself. She hung up. That night, Olivia didn't sleep. Not because of work, but because, for the first time in years, she realized there was something more important than herself, more important than the success she had chased all her life. The next morning, as Boston still slumbered under a damp early fog, Olivia drove out of the city center. No chauffeur, no assistant, no schedule, just a handwritten address, an old scrap of paper she'd kept in her wallet for over 7 years, like a promise she swore she'd never have to keep. If you ever need a place, come here. That was what her best friend from high school told her before moving far away, along with the address of a youth support center in the Dorchester suburbs. She wasn't sure why she was heading there now. Maybe it was the boy's eyes from yesterday. Maybe, deep down, she still believed that a late apology was better than staying silent forever. The center sat humbly beneath aging trees with fading leaves, next to an old basketball court. The white-painted wooden door was peeling, but inside, the air was strangely warm, the scent of old notebooks, the soft squeak of sneakers on the floor, and children's voices echoing from a nearby activity room. Olivia stepped in, unsure of herself, like someone who had just left her world behind and entered one where she was no one. A sharp-eyed woman with salt and pepper hair looked up from the reception desk. "Can I help you?" Olivia hesitated, her hand gently gripping her purse strap. "I'm not sure. I just wanted to ask, is there a boy named Tyler here? About 7 or 8 years old, tan skin, dark hair, deep eyes." The woman squinted slightly, then nodded slowly. "There's a boy named Tyler who stops by most afternoons, but he doesn't live here. He lives with his mother. Can I leave something for him?" She nodded. But before Olivia could write anything, a small voice behind her spoke. "You're the lady from the movie theater, aren't you?" She turned. Tyler was standing right there. His oversized gray hoodie hid part of his face, but his eyes, those eyes, were unmistakable. Still the same, old beyond their years, wary and yet full of hope. "How did you know I'd be here?" Olivia knelt down to his level, her fingers laced together, slightly trembling. "I didn't. I just came looking, because I couldn't stop thinking about you." Tyler said nothing. He just stared at her for a long moment. Then, suddenly, he spoke. "My mom says not to trust strangers, especially rich ones." Olivia gave a faint smile, dry but not bitter. "I don't blame your mom. I used to be a kid who didn't trust anyone." She paused, then added, "Is your mom doing okay?" This time, Tyler didn't answer. He looked down, one worn sneaker quietly nudging a pebble on the ground. His silence said, "Everything." A sudden intuition ran through Olivia, like a shiver. A question, cold and sharp. What if his mother was someone she once knew? What if what happened back then didn't end the way she thought it had, Tyler? "What's your last name?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He looked at her. His eyes narrowed slightly, as if he sensed something. But he answered anyway. "Garrison. Tyler Garrison." Olivia froze. Her hands clenched tightly together. That name was a name she had spent her entire youth trying to forget. Tyler tilted his head, watching her reaction. "You knew my mom." Olivia gave a small nod, her eyes suddenly welling up, her voice noticeably trembling. "I owed her. Something I never got the chance to repay." Tyler stiffened. A flicker of suspicion crossed his young eyes. But strangely, he didn't turn away. He didn't run. He just asked, "So what do you want to do now?" Olivia swallowed. Slowly, "I want to make things right. If you'll let me." From the back courtyard of the center came the sound of other children laughing. But between Olivia and Tyler, everything felt suspended in a silence of its own, a quiet space where both of them seemed to understand that sometimes fate has a strange way of circling back. The afternoon passed, as if time itself had learned to slow down. The youth center began to empty. Volunteers tidied up, and the sunset streamed through the old glass windows, casting a thin, honey-colored light across the scuffed wooden floors. Tyler was still standing beside Olivia, his thin legs gently swaying, his eyes quietly following every move of the woman he didn't yet understand, but whom his instincts, somehow, didn't want to let go of. Olivia took a deep breath. Then she spoke. "Slowly, Tyler. I'd like, if you're okay with it, to meet your mother." He didn't answer right away. His eyes shifted, avoiding hers, as if silently wondering whether to open that door, not the one to the room, but the door to the truth. Finally, his voice came, dry and flat. "She doesn't like seeing people from the past, especially the ones who disappeared." Olivia bowed her head, a flicker of pain passing through her eyes. She didn't offer an excuse. She knew Tyler wasn't wrong, and his mother, if she truly was the woman Olivia once knew, then her departure back then had been nothing short of a wound to someone's trust. A moment later, Tyler turned back, his small hand tugging lightly at her sleeve. "Come with me. She's cleaning the small theater room here, last one at the end of the hallway." The small room at the end of the hallway sat quietly, like a folded memory tucked inside the pages of an old book. The scent of disinfectant, old paint, and the faint hum of a test-running projector filled the space with a heavy stillness. Olivia stood at the door, her palms damp with sweat. Every step she took seemed to pull her heart further backward. Then she pushed the door open. Inside, a woman was bent over, wiping down rows of worn red plastic seats. Her thick brown hair, once sleek and radiant, was now streaked with silver, her shoulders narrow, her movement slow, but steady, careful. Olivia didn't need anyone to say it. She knew instantly. It was Grace. Grace Garrison, her best friend from high school. The one who taught Olivia how to mix formula, how to make peanut butter sandwiches. The first person who showed her how to keep a journal. And the last one who saw her out of the hospital that year. She was the one who had held Olivia while she cried like a child, cried because she couldn't hold on to the small life inside her after the terrible accident at 19. Grace looked up at the sound, her brown eyes flashing with guarded instinct. "Sorry, the theater's not open yet," she began, then stopped. Their eyes met, just for a moment. A single blink, and the past shattered into 1,000 pieces across the small room. The mop fell to the floor. Olivia couldn't speak. She just stood there, as if any movement would cause time itself to collapse. Grace stepped back slightly. Her voice was hoarse, whether from exhaustion or the sudden storm in her chest. It was hard to tell. "Is that you?" Olivia nodded gently. No one called her that name, only Grace. Only the person who had once been her whole youth. Silence. Only the hum of the projector. The rustle of a small mouse darting behind the screen. Finally, Olivia spoke. "I didn't mean to disappear like that. I just didn't know what to do." Grace clenched her fists, her eyes locked on Olivia. "Then what do you think I've been doing for the past 7 years? Raising a son who doesn't know who his father is? Working odd jobs, getting kicked out of motels twice because I couldn't make rent? I know I was wrong. I'm not asking to be forgiven. I'm just asking to stay, to do something, even something small." Olivia's voice dropped to a whisper, like she was speaking more to herself than to Grace. Tyler was still standing outside the door, eyes wide, silent. That child was witnessing something most adults choose to bury, two people facing the memory they had both run from. After a long moment, Grace's voice softened, tired. "I'm not the Grace from when we were 18, Olivia. I don't have the strength to get hurt again. But Tyler, he deserves someone who stays." Olivia nodded, tearful. Light from the window spilled over both women's faces. Two beams crossing paths, like two lives that had once diverged, now slowly finding their way back. Thursday afternoon, the day before Thanksgiving. It was colder than usual. The first winter winds had already swept across the narrow streets west of town. In front of a ground-floor apartment, where Grace and Tyler had lived for nearly 3 years, Olivia was fumbling with heavy paper bags, potatoes, turkey, celery, pie, marshmallows. and a box of frozen pumpkin puree. Tyler stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes half surprised, half skeptical. "What are you planning to do with all that?" he asked, not mocking, just honest. Olivia smiled. "Something I've never done right, cook a Thanksgiving dinner. And if you'll let me, it'll be the first one I've ever made for someone other than myself." Tyler looked down, his expression unfamiliar. He wasn't fully trusting yet, but his heart, long singed by disappointment, couldn't quite keep the warmth out. That night, the oven crackled like it too was nervous. Grace leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, eyes watching Olivia clumsily mixing the stuffing. She looked reluctant, but not as closed off as she had been in the days before. "I remember you didn't even know how to hold a spoon the right way," Grace said, half teasing. Olivia looked up, her face flushed, partly from the heat, partly from embarrassment. "Do you remember the time you accidentally mixed salt into my birthday cake batter?" she replied quietly. They both laughed, a soft, tentative laugh, but not forced. In the living room, Tyler was cutting colored paper to decorate the table. Each fold and snip was careful. He wanted everything neat, not for anyone else, but because, for the first time in years, his heart wanted to believe there could be a holiday, like in the movies, a day when people sat together and no one rushed to leave. By the time dinner began, the small room held more than just the scent of food. It held the scent of hope. Crispy cornbread, smooth mashed potatoes, golden roast turkey, and a pumpkin pie just slightly burnt at the edges. On the table, each person had a plate, a glass of warm apple cider with cinnamon. Not fancy, not grand, but warm. Grace sat at the head of the table, Olivia across from her, Tyler between them, for the first time, feeling like he wasn't the one sitting out of place. "Before we eat, we're supposed to say what we're thankful for, right?" he said, as if he had been thinking about it for a while. Grace and Olivia looked at each other. Then Olivia nodded. Tyler swallowed, sat up straight, his voice small but clear. "I'm thankful that this year my mom isn't alone, and that you came back, not to say sorry but to stay." The air went still for a moment. Olivia felt her throat tighten, while Grace silently looked at her son. Then, quietly, Grace placed her hand on the table, near Olivia's. "I don't forgive you. Not completely. But if you really mean to stay, I won't stop you." Her eyes no longer cut like blades. They were more like a door, still locked, but with the key now hanging nearby. Olivia nodded gently, her fingers curling slightly around the edge of the napkin. For the first time in 7 years, she felt like a dinner table could begin to heal what time never managed to fix. In that moment, they didn't need the past to change. They only needed the present not to give up. Early the next morning, as the town still dozed beneath a soft layer of fog, Olivia woke earlier than usual. She stood at the sink, looking at herself in the mirror, her eyes still tinged red from the night before. Not from exhaustion, but from emotions she hadn't expected to feel again, especially the way Tyler had said her name, barely above a breath. "Will you stay?" In all her years drifting, Olivia had often dreamed of becoming a mother again, but she had never imagined that motherhood would mean having to learn everything from scratch, because being a mother wasn't a title, it was a promise, and promises couldn't be half-kept. She stepped out of the room, careful not to wake Grace and Tyler. Her hand found the drawer, pulling out a stack of papers she had carried for months, job applications, documents proving rehabilitation, records of successful sobriety, a temporary housing permit sponsored by the local church. Each sheet marked a step she had taken, every fall and rise, not to escape her past, but to become someone worthy of Tyler. That afternoon, when Grace returned from her shift at the supermarket, Olivia was already waiting at the table. Her hand turned a cup of cold tea slowly, her eyes showing a quiet strain. "I need to talk to you," Olivia said first. Grace hung her coat on the chair and cautiously sat across from her. One look, and she knew this wasn't another apology. This was something deeper, more serious. "I want to apply for legal guardianship of Tyler." The room froze. Grace flinched, her hand, which had been holding a spoon, stopped midair. "What did you just say?" Olivia took a deep breath, not to take him away. "I'm not asking you to give him up, but if something happens to you, if one day you have to choose between 2 jobs or 2 places to live, or if you ever land in a hospital and can't look after him, at the very least, your son won't end up in a shelter. He'll have someone legal to protect him. I want to be that person." Grace let out a bitter laugh, short, sharp. You've picked up the language of caseworkers now, huh? Olivia didn't flinch. She placed the file on the table. I've worked with a community lawyer. Nothing expensive. Step by step. No one will strip your rights, Grace. I'll sign everything to keep you as primary guardian. I'm just asking for a share of the responsibility, if you're willing. Grace was silent. She looked at the paperwork, then back at Olivia, as if trying to see through her skin, to check if there was still any deception hiding beneath. Finally, she let out a long, tired breath. I used to think you came back just to make things right, then move on. I used to think that too, Olivia admitted, until I saw him sleeping, clutching a towel like he was afraid of being left again, until he argued with me, but still let me hold him during the movie. And you think he forgives that easily? No, but I don't need him to forgive me. I just need him to have someone who won't leave, no matter what. That evening, Olivia sat with Tyler in a small park near their home. Dry leaves rustled underfoot, the air crisp but not biting. Tyler sat still, hugging his knees, eyes on the sky. When I was little, I wrote you a letter, he said. Olivia tilted her head, surprised. A letter. I never sent it. I wrote it and hid it under my pillow. Tyler gave a half smile. It said, I hate you, but if you come back, I'll give you one more chance. Olivia turned to look at him. It felt like someone was knocking softly on her heart. Steady, gentle. I won't let you write another letter like that, she said, because from now on, I'm staying. For good. Tyler turned away, not wanting her to see his eyes, now tinged red. A moment passed. Then he said quietly, if one day you call my mom sister, I won't mind. Olivia's heart clenched, not from pain, but from the fragile new trust beginning to grow. In that moment, she understood, being a mother doesn't begin with blood. It begins the moment you choose to stand by a child, even if your past once did the opposite. A week later, just when things seemed to be falling into place, the past, as always, knocked at the worst possible time. That afternoon, Olivia was tidying up Tyler's room. Math books and coloring pens lay scattered across the bed. She bent down to organize them when her hand brushed against a thin, small notebook wedged between two comic books. She opened it. On the first page, in Tyler's messy handwriting, were the words, Secret Code, Important Stuff About Mom and Dad. Olivia froze. The second page held a drawing. A small house, 3 people, a woman with curly hair, a man in a baseball cap, and a boy standing between them. Above it, a name, Uncle Rick. Her heart skipped a beat. Rick, the man who vanished after the last time Grace cried all night in their old San Antonio apartment. The man who quietly stepped out of their lives after finding out he had a child and still chose gambling over responsibility. Rick, the man Olivia believed no longer existed in Grace's story. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Olivia sat across from Grace in the kitchen. The warm yellow light made Grace's face look more worn than usual. How long have you been hiding Rick from him? Olivia asked plainly. Not with anger, but not gently either. Grace sighed, fingers buried in her hair. She hesitated. I didn't know how to tell him. He kept asking, so I made something up, that his dad lived far away, that he was kind but just couldn't come back. Did he believe it? He wanted to, especially once the kids at school started asking. Olivia leaned back, eyes drifting to the window where faint light spilled in. The air between them was thick, like fog that wouldn't lift. Grace, Rick doesn't deserve to exist in that boy's memory. You know that better than anyone, I know. Grace's voice cracked. But I was scared. If one day you're not here anymore, if it all falls apart again, at least he'd have a dream to hold on to, even if it's a lie. Olivia stayed silent. She understood that fear. She'd once been a part of it. After a long pause, Grace spoke again. But now that you're here, maybe it's time to tell him the truth. 3 days later, Tyler was invited to perform at the community center's Thanksgiving event. He sang a short solo from Count on Me, his voice a little shaky, but his eyes never strayed from the seats below, where Olivia and Grace sat side by side, clapping along to the rhythm. It was the first time Olivia had cried in silence since coming back, but these were the tears of someone who had been forgiven. After the performance, as people slowly trickled out, Olivia gently pulled Tyler aside and asked, Do you remember Uncle Rick? Tyler paused. His face showed clear confusion, kind of. But, I just remember what Mom told me. Olivia nodded. I want you to know, Some people belong only in memory. Not because they're bad, but because they're not ready to do the right thing. Tyler looked up at her, focused. So, is my dad a bad person? Olivia didn't answer right away. She sat down, locking eyes with him, those clear, steady eyes that weren't naive enough not to understand pain. Your dad's not bad. He just didn't have the courage to love in the right way. The boy said nothing. He just leaned his head gently on her shoulder. The first time he didn't ask for more. That night, once Tyler had fallen asleep, Olivia picked up her phone. She dialed a number she hadn't touched in years, Rick's number. It rang for a while before someone finally answered. "Who's this?" The voice was hoarse and lazy, just like she remembered. "It's Olivia." There was silence. Then a short laugh. "Well, look who's finally calling." The famous sister-in-law, not a sister-in-law. "And I'm not calling to patch anything up." Rick scoffed. "Then what?" Olivia gripped the phone tighter. "Just letting you know, don't ever show up. Not because I'm afraid, but because Tyler already has a family. And the last thing he needs is someone who only comes back when everything's okay, just to disappear again." Rick didn't reply. If you ever wanted to be a father, you had 7 years to show up. Now it's too late. She hung up before he could say a word. Before heading to bed, Olivia stopped by Tyler's room. He was hugging his pillow, mumbling in his sleep, eyes shut tight. She pulled the blanket up over him and whispered softly, "No one gets to leave you again, kid, I swear." A week after the call with Rick, just when everything seemed to be falling into place again, Olivia received a pale gray envelope from the State Community Rehabilitation Center. Inside was an offer. More specifically, a formal job offer. Position: Program Coordinator for Reintegration Support in Austin, the same city where she had once taken post-release counseling classes. Start date: 2 weeks from now. Contract term: 1 year. The offer came from Miss Harris, the woman who had once believed Olivia could change. And now, after nearly a year of quietly watching Olivia's progress, she was ready to offer her a job, with a salary, health insurance, and a real chance at rebuilding her life. The only problem: the job was in Austin, almost 300 miles away from where Olivia now called home. That night, Olivia sat alone in the backyard, the letter resting on her lap. She hadn't told anyone yet. A soft, yellow porch light cast a glow on the folding chair. Tyler was asleep after an art class, and Grace was still working a late shift at the sandwich shop on the corner. The late autumn breeze slipped through her hair. The world was quiet, broken only by the distant chirp of insects and the occasional sound of a car horn. This life, it wasn't something Olivia had ever dreamed of having. Not glamorous, not spectacular, but warm. The kind of warmth only someone who had lived 3 years inside 4 windowless walls could understand. But now she had to choose. The next day, Olivia decided to tell Grace. They sat in the kitchen, each with a cup of hot tea. 1 year, Olivia said, gripping her mug. Just 1 year. After that I can come back. Grace looked at her. Her expression held no anger, but it was heavy. A long pause. Then, and Tyler? It wasn't a light question. Olivia knew that. She'd asked herself the same thing hundreds of times since last night. I'll call him every day. Come back on weekends if I can save enough. I don't want to leave him, but I need a stable job, a real opportunity. For all 3 of us. Grace leaned back, eyes half closed. After a moment, she nodded. I get it. Olivia paused. Really? Grace gave a faint smile. I once had a chance like that. I turned it down, and I've regretted it every day since. If you can go, go. But, she stopped and looked Olivia in the eye. Only go if you're sure you'll come back. 2 women, once broken, once abandoned, once on the outside, now bound by a quiet trust. A few days later, Olivia sat with Tyler on a bench at the park. He was drawing the sunset, strokes of orange and red stretching behind the trees. Olivia waited until he put the pencil down. I need to tell you something, she began. Tyler turned, eyes wide. I have to go to work. For a while, in another city. Not for long, just a few months. I'll come back on weekends. He said nothing, just stared down at his shoes. Olivia leaned in until they were eye to eye. I promise I'll call you every night. I'll send you drawings, letters. I'm only going so I can stay for good later. Do you believe me? Tyler looked up. His eyes were watery, but not angry. Will you come back? Yes. Olivia's voice was firm, solid as steel. I will always come back. A moment passed. Then Tyler nodded. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a small slip of paper, a drawing of the two of them. With the words Miss Liv scribbled in the corner, "Take this, for when you miss home." Olivia pulled him into a tight hug, and in that moment, she knew, no matter where she went, she now had a home to return to. The night before departure, Olivia's small bedroom was unusually neat. She packed only one suitcase, a few sets of clothes, and her file of documents. But on the desk, under the warm glow of a lamp, sat a photo frame, the three of them on Thanksgiving Day, each holding a slice of pumpkin pie, laughing wide and unguarded. She stared at the photo for a long time, then smiled. No one starts over without giving something up, but if you know what you're holding on to, every step is worth it. 3 weeks passed since Olivia had left town to start her job in Austin. This city wasn't unfamiliar. She'd once lived here in college, once dreamed big under glass towers and coffee shop streetlights. But this time was different. She wasn't an ambitious student. She wasn't a newly released inmate. For the first time in a long time, she was just a person. She went to work each morning, ate lunch in the break room, clocked out at 5. Her office was on the second floor of a 3-story building that coordinated reintegration programs. On her desk, a computer, a stainless steel water bottle, and a drawing Tyler had sent, the two of them sitting under a tree, next to the words, "Go live, go." Mornings in the office passed steadily, but the evenings felt different. When the city lit up at night, Olivia felt a familiar emptiness stretching quietly through her chest. She missed Grace, the only friend who had opened her door when no one else dared. She missed Tyler, his giggles on the back of her bike, waving a leaf he'd just found. Every evening, Olivia called home. Tyler always picked up with something like, "Hey, I had pineapple pizza today," or Grace scolded me for drawing on the wall. Small stories, brief ones, but they grounded her, kept her heart right where it belonged, home. Grace was the same, calm, grounded, though sometimes Olivia could hear a trace of weariness in her voice, a quiet confusion that Olivia couldn't quite reach in time to ease. One Friday night, after a call with Tyler, Olivia stood silently on the balcony of her temporary apartment. The wind carried the scent of lavender from the tea shop downstairs. The streets were buzzing, cars whizzing by, but her mind circled a single question: am I really doing the right thing? She had a good job, helping people who had once been just like her. Each week, at least 2 one-on-one sessions, an orientation class, and a group check-in. She taught them how to write resumes, how to speak in interviews, how to be patient in the face of society's judgment. And as she listened to their stories of rejection, dismissal, invisibility, she saw herself in them. She was living the life they dreamed of. And yet, inside her, something felt empty. A part of her had been left behind, with the child who was counting down the days until she came back. Sunday morning, week 4, when Olivia opened her phone, there was a message from Grace. Short and sharp: "Tyler's got a fever. Trouble breathing last night. At St. Mary's Hospital, room 203. She didn't read it twice. The suitcase hit the bed, clothes tossed in, and within 20 minutes, she was on the road. 300 miles, a distance once measured with logic, now retraced by heart. Every passing minute was torture. She couldn't stop thinking about Tyler's dry coughs, the times he tried to hide his pain so she wouldn't worry. In her mind, a single thought echoed: I should have stayed. I shouldn't have gone this far. That night, she stepped into the hospital room. Fluorescent light washed over Tyler's small, pale face. But when he saw her, he whispered, "Miss Liv." Olivia rushed to his side, hugging him tight. One arm wrapped around him, the other trembling as she gently stroked his hair. "I'm so sorry. I'm here now. I'm not leaving again." Tyler shook his head weakly. "You didn't do anything wrong. I just missed you." That night, Olivia stayed by his bedside. No sleep, no distractions, just presence. As the sky began to lighten, Grace handed her a cup of cold coffee and said, "I know you tried. But sometimes, trying isn't the same as being where you're needed." Olivia looked at Tyler, then at Grace, and for the first time in years, she understood something completely. Love isn't always about the big gestures. Sometimes, it's simply about being there, in the hardest moments. A few days later, Olivia submitted her resignation. Her supervisor was shocked, but Olivia simply said, "I want to help others rebuild their lives, but I realized I haven't truly rebuilt mine, and I can't do that from far away." On an early winter afternoon, With the sun just slipping off the rooftops, Olivia set her old suitcase down on the steps in front of Grace's apartment. The air carried the earthy scent of rain-soaked ground, cold, but not cruel. Inside, Tyler was watching cartoons. His laughter echoed faintly through the cracked doorway. Olivia stood still for a moment. Her chest tightened at the familiar, aching feeling. This was home. Not the apartment she had rented. Not the office she lit up from 9 to 5. Here, with the only two people who had ever believed in her when the world had walked away. Grace opened the door, leaning against the old wooden frame. "You sure about this?" Olivia looked up, lips pressed tight before finally answering aloud. "I'm not sure about anything, but I know what's right." Grace nodded, quietly pushing the door open wider. No welcome speech. No agreement. That gesture alone was the answer. That night, Olivia sat on the living room floor with Tyler, wrapped in a blanket, watching his favorite episode again. He rested his head on her shoulder, his tiny hand gripping hers, and this time, she held it back with quiet certainty. This time, she promised herself she wouldn't lose what mattered most. After he fell asleep, Olivia stepped out onto the porch. Grace was sitting with a cup of tea, the warm light casting a soft glow around her in the chilly night. "I'm scared I'm not good enough," Olivia whispered, her eyes drifting toward the distant town lights. "Everyone's scared of that. Live," Grace replied slowly. "But sometimes, just staying is enough." The next day, Olivia began again. No more polished offices, no more ironed shirts each morning. She returned to the little bakery she had once applied to months ago, this time, not to escape her past, but to start over with it. The owner remembered her, didn't ask questions, just nodded and handed her a green apron. Mornings began with the jingle of the shop doorbell, the smell of fresh toast, and Tyler's wide grin when he stopped by with Grace before school. Some days were busy and exhausting, and Olivia felt worn to the bone, but her heart stayed light. Because at the end of the day, she knew exactly where she belonged. One weekend, Olivia and Tyler built a blanket fort in the living room. They crawled inside, turned on a flashlight, and told each other made-up stories about foxes going to school, donuts that could sing, and a mom who used to be a superhero. Tyler asked, "Miss Liv, did you have a home before?" Olivia paused for a moment, then answered, "I did, but not a real home, just places with walls and roofs." "A real home is where someone's waiting for you to come back." The boy nodded thoughtfully, then whispered, "I think I'm your home." Olivia turned toward him, eyes filling with tears. "Yes, you are my home." 1 year later, Olivia stood inside their new apartment, just a small place, 2 bedrooms, a little balcony that looked out onto the park. Tyler ran in circles between the moving boxes, laughing like it was all part of a game. Grace was arranging flowers in a vase, muttering about spilling rosewater on the floor. Olivia took a deep breath, feeling happiness settle into every part of her. No one is perfect. Her past couldn't be erased, but the present and the future were hers to choose. And she chose this, a home that didn't need to be grand, only full of love. The story's lesson. Forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's starting again. A home doesn't need to have everything, it just needs someone who stays. And most of all, no one is hopeless, as long as there's someone patient enough to stay.